The X-Men franchise has definitely seen its fair share of highs and lows throughout its lifespan. At their worst, the X-Men films are mediocre affairs, and at their best, they offer not only wonderful action, but thought-provoking dialogue and commentary on racism, prejudice, and segregation. X-Men Apocalypse, however, is set to unleash the most devastating, world-threatening villain to date, while showing off a bevy of mutants, both old and new. As with all my reviews, I'll go over a brief description of the plot, the good, and the bad. Also, this will be a spoiler-free review, assuming that you've seen the trailers. Let's get to it. It's been almost a decade since our X-Men were involved in a major conflict, and have since gone to ground. Charles Xavier and Hank McCoy are running Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, Mystique is helping out mutants wherever they are being mistreated, and Eric Lencher, aka Magneto, has built a family for himself in Poland. Although the world is aware of mutants after the events of the previous film, Days of Future Past, humans are still quite wary of mutants, and unrest seems to be a global syndrome. To make matters much, much worse, one of the most powerful and potentially first mutant has awoken from a multi-thousand-year slumber and plans on cleansing the world with the help of 4 extra-powered mutants called the Four Horsemen. Mutants, and those strong enough to withstand the world-annihilating event, will help establish a new reign with Apocalypse at the throne. Now let's get to the good stuff. First off, James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender are stellar in their returning roles as Professor X and Magneto respectively. Both seem to have grown into these characters, with Fassbender in particular doing a standout job of making Magneto not only menacing, but empathetic. Many other characters return or are introduced for the first time, like Mystique, Cyclops, Jean Grey, Storm, Nightcrawler, and Psylocke, to name a few, and all of them do a good job. A big question some fans of Days of Future Past might have is whether or not Quicksilver will outdo himself and his mind-blowing scene from that film. Without spoiling anything, I can safely say that you won't be disappointed. The last point I want to touch on is the action, which is in no short supply. This is without a doubt the biggest X-Men film in scope and scale, which really helps emphasize what a threat Apocalypse really is. The fights are decent enough and serviceable, to a point. One thing that nearly brings a tear to my eye in this particular trilogy, or any X-Men film for that matter, is when we see Magneto utilizing his powers to their utmost, and this film is no exception. Call me crazy or a Magneto fanboy, but I truly think a standalone could still work for him. The music and some of the particular slow-motion shots are also some of the highlights that shouldn't go unpraised. The main score is still one of my all-time favorites, and there are a few choice moments where the images look like they leapt off the page of a comic book. On the other hand, X-Men Apocalypse has a few flaws. First off, the CGI is overly abundant. It's so blatantly evident when a normal human actor turns into a computer-generated doppelganger of themselves. These moments are jarring and can really rip you out of a scene. Next, Apocalypse, while very cool, is kind of an odd character in this movie. His motivations are clear, but his powers almost seem limitless. Not that I need someone to spit out a laundry list of his abilities, but most of the time I thought, couldn't you just go fight yourself? It's a minor gripe, and the Horsemen are cool, but I would have liked to have seen more Apocalypse in action. A more fleshed out backstory would have been good too, as far as he's concerned. I'd love to have seen where he truly originated from, but the movie's runtime was long enough as it was. The last thing I want to say about this film is that it didn't really leave me wanting more, besides more Magneto. Can you ever have too much Magneto? I'm thinking not. It truly is just more of the first-class crew doing what they've always done, which could be seen as somewhat lackluster by anyone who isn't a rabid fan. Overall, X-Men Apocalypse has many things working in its favor. A strong cast led by James McAvoy, Jennifer Lawrence, and Michael Fassbender, the introduction and continuation of fan favorites like Psylocke and Quicksilver, and some very intense action set pieces that are a true feast for the eyes. What keeps this movie from achieving its full potential is an overuse of jarring CGI and the fact that it doesn't really try anything new. If anything, this movie reinforces the idea that mutants would quite possibly destroy the world and justifies the fears of us lowly Homo sapiens. If you're a fan, then it's a no-brainer. And even if you aren't, you can definitely find something to like. Like my review? Let me know what you think of X-Men Apocalypse in the comments below. Also, be sure to share this with anyone who's interested in seeing it and might be on the fence about it. Be sure to follow me on Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, and Instagram for all the recent going-ons here at Critical Reviews. If you have time, check out my weekly podcast called The Critical Podcast. I know, an original name, am I right? Each week, Joe and I discuss the latest and greatest in video games, movies, TV shows, and what have you. And this week, we'll be talking in depth about X-Men Apocalypse, so be sure to check it out. If you're feeling extra generous, visit the Twitch channel and our PayPal account. The time you donate is the most precious to us, but a few bucks here and there allow us to upgrade our tech and possibly cover events down the line. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you next time.